You're watching the Newshour Washington DC edition with Arnab Goswami.
So Arnab, if I may just take it to one point.
Please.
I personally am involved in investing in India right now.
Yeah.
I've been investing in cross-border US and Canada thus far.
Yes.
And going forward, we are very bullish on India. Silicon Valley is very bullish on India. We want to take technology there. We want to take healthcare there. We want to take pharmaceutical. Everything that you were just talking earlier, we want to take clean tech, green tech, all of that. We're very bullish. And I'll tell you why we are bullish. Silicon Valley completely invests in human beings. We don't invest in technologies. And we always invest in somebody who's self-made and an entrepreneur. And I think, as far as we are concerned, Modi is a poster child of a self-made entrepreneurial human being who has come through a lot of trials and tribulations thrown at him and has risen above them, first of all. Secondly, what is very important in Silicon Valley is we want H-1B visa to be clamped as quickly as possible onto anybody who's capable of coming to Silicon Valley, making it happen, because we are bleeding in Silicon Valley. We take huge pride in being #1 in the world in technology, in innovation, in entrepreneurship. Yeah. We cannot have that happen unless we have fresh blood, and we cannot rely on people saying that the rules are going to change.
Yeah.
India has amazing number of brilliant engineers, IT, healthcare, so on, and the list goes on. We want those.
Yeah.
And I see no reason why Modi ji, given how bullish he is on Indians, cannot make that happen with President Obama, who himself wants to have the fresh blood, the immigrants come. Yeah. Right, that's one thing. Secondly, as far as India is concerned, it's a new chapter. We are very bullish, exceptionally bullish. Obviously, we'll be disappointed if things don't get followed through. We are very bullish. You can't invest right now in Greece, Spain, Egypt, Syria. The list goes on.
On the issue of follow-through, Modi understands this. After his visit to Japan, where he got a promise of $35 billion, he's already set up a committee to go through every single promise that was made, every single credit line that has been promised.
Was opened up.
And all of that is going to be looked at in terms of the follow-through, so that the deals that were signed when he was there in Japan go through. Similar thing has happened for his talks with China. He's already set up committees for the follow-through. So he understands the follow-through. What I understand from officials in the Prime Minister's office, even after the US visit, the same issue is going to be taken up back home for a team to go through the follow-through on all that is raised in the Indo-American US
I want to go back to Alyssa here, because you did say, see, essentially, it's not as if Modi and Obama was going to sit with 2 pieces of paper and come to an agreement on 10 issues. I agree to a certain point that it's got to do with just setting the right atmospherics. And I think I saw your piece, I think it was published in the Mint newspaper, where you said the priorities of the Modi government have more to do with Wall Street than 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I think that was very well put, and I think that's very positive. And when he meets 19 CEOs for breakfast, he's trying his best to set up the right atmospherics. Now what?
I think that matters.
After this, how does it work out?
The atmospherics do matter, and I think that people will be looking to see exactly how the Prime Minister does take forward
Alyssa, what's the honeymoon period?
Well, I think the honeymoon period in India is going to be shorter than the honeymoon period internationally, because I think Indian citizens are going to be looking for fast results from their new Prime Minister.
No, I meant in terms of global investors and the investing community. What's the honeymoon period? Because the expectations were so sky high. And a lot of the big private equity investors and others were clinging on to the hope that Modi would come, if for nothing else than to manage the perception that India still has hope in the future after what the Manmohan Singh government took the country through. So in that sense, how much time would Modi have? The honeymoon is not going to last forever.
That's why people are going to be looking to see exactly what the follow-through is.
1 year?
I think people will probably defer judgment until at least the passage of the first full-year budget, so maybe end February, early March, and then people will start to say, well, what's moved, what hasn't moved? Is it a welcoming business environment? Does the promises, do they match our opportunities now? That's what I think people will be looking. I'm not a business person.
Because he seemed to hint that labor laws and all will be changed. Some of these things are easier said than done. There are strong political lobbies, including those within the political groups close to the BJP, which will not allow many of these things to happen. So Modi has to for him to walk the talk.
And the needle has moved. I mean, as of yesterday when we were in Madison Square Garden, the last statement he's made, you land in India and you get visa. That's a huge...
That is huge.
That is huge, Arnab. It's not the state.
No, it's not sizzle.
It's absolutely not sizzle.
Getting visas is hard.
For American citizens, it's a huge thing.
This way, a honeymoon is normally not in phases. Yeah. But with the political honeymoon, I think Alyssa is absolutely right in saying the Indians will expect results faster because foreigners will be a little more patient.
Yeah.
I would say in India, if within 6 months, which is, yes, the budget time, if we don't have concrete results, there will be stirrings of, something is going wrong.
I think foreigners will not only...
There will still be time to fix it. Mm-hmm. But there have been so many promises made, whether it's labor, whether it's projects being cleared. The problem is that Chidambaram had given the same thing back in 2012 when he was called. Mm-hmm. They cleared 6 lakh crore worth of projects and nothing happened on the ground.
Yeah.
But I would like to say it's not that the foreigners are going to be patient. Foreigners will not be patient. They're going to be cautious.
The real thing now is that it's not enough to just say government has cleared.
No.
There requires to be something more structurally. Yeah. And I said these are these additional levels.
I get a feeling, Swami, you know the Americans better. You worked here and you've dealt with them for a long time. But Modi, at least on paper, brought back a significant amount of investment from his meetings in Japan.
Yes,
and also his meetings with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. And there's a feeling that, Americans are not like that. The Americans don't put money on the plate, that they're a very different ball game. They will not invest on promise, and Americans may not take the plunge vis-a-vis India when the Indian economy is just growing at just above, okay, you've gone up by 1%, but just above 5%. So I don't know whether America would want to come in at this stage making some strong concrete investments, or whether the investments will happen, or whether they will have a cautious approach before engaging at that level. What do you think? What's your take?
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, what's your take?
Well, I don't know that I never understood that Americans were that different as entrepreneurs and waiting for a situation to be stabilized. I mean, the big companies obviously are going to require sufficiently clear rule of law in both the national and the state level that nobody's going to commit to large projects without the ability to repatriate their investment. But I think India is,
developing
and hopefully will get to a point soon where that's not so much of an issue.
Yeah. Arnab, can I just jump in? I just wanted to jump in. I think we need to distinguish the way the economics of foreign investment work in the United States versus the way major deals work with Japan and China internationally. Please. China and Japan, as you've seen with the recent conversations with India, have a much stronger ability to do state-directed investment. Japan uses its overseas development assistance in very large dollar amounts to further some of its strategic relationships around the world. China does the same kind of thing. The U.S. government has, a regulatory approach to the private sector, not a kind of playing in the private sector approach. So what the U.S. government will do is quite different. We have a couple tools in the U.S. government policy toolbox that can help support foreign investment. For example, the U.S. Exim Bank that can help provide risk insurance or some export promotion support. We have the Overseas Private Investment Corporation that can do risk insurance to make overseas investment a little bit less risky. But that's very different from having a government fund, for example, that can say, we are going to do $35 billion over 5 years in X country. So that's why it's so important what the private sector will be hearing from the Prime Minister.
Modi's engagement. So why then aren't you disagreeing with Swami? Your positions seem to be completely contrary to those of Swami, but you've not really taken him on.
Well, I don't think we really disagree, actually. I think I try to be optimistic, although I also agree that there have been challenges between the United States and India economically, and some of those are pretty difficult issues that will take some sorting out. But ultimately, the investment question and the big dollar amounts of investment, that's going to come, that's individual companies saying, hey, this works for our business model.
The reason I'm asking this question, and Swami is well aware of the context, is because in India, there is a growing impatience to see the graph turn back. You're aware of it. And this is not just in terms of, whether people, their incomes rise, employments rise. You've talked about Achhe Din. aane wale hain. That basically means times and things are going to change. So I don't know how much time one has.
I think, I would say we have, say, up to a year. Okay. But as far as the American investment is concerned, please remember, America is already in a post-industrial phase. This country is not basically in the manufacturing thing which Modi wants to talk about. Manufacturing has massively gone to China. Even Japan is getting into post. The Koreans are closer to that, which is why the Koreans have invested more aggressively than the Japanese in India, right? And if you are looking at the post-industrial phase, what is the investments you're talking about? You're talking about banks, you're talking about financial institutions, you're talking about R&D, you're talking about pharmaceuticals. In many of these things, India is not a conducive place. We are not dying to attract the American pharmaceutical companies given our IPR laws. We are not dying to attract the financiers, not at all. I mean, we won't allow anybody majority control. Even if they have bringing in a large number of shares, there was a cap on the voting power. There's a cap on insurance. So when you say if America is post-industrial, are you appealing to those kinds of companies? And the answer is we are not. So if Modi says make in India, the manufacturing...
Do you think this whole marketing of make in India is too premature? Do you think it's more of an advertising gimmick at this stage?
No, it's important, but the fellows who are good in manufacturing right now, I mean China, Korea...
Do you feel he's rushed into selling make in India for the international community? Navika?
Not at all. No? I think he realizes that manufacturing sector revival is important for India in terms of creating employment. That's the kind of employment the Indians are looking for. So he is looking for setting up industry in India and resolving the employment issue. But I tend to agree with Swami. Just look at the number of CEOs who met him from the financial sector alone today. KKR, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Mastercard, Citigroup, Warburg Pincus, all of them big financial companies. And what are they looking for? They're looking for insurance sector reforms, they're looking for pension sector reforms, they're looking for banking sector reforms. And all of these are legislations where both the Congress party and the BJP agree, but they haven't been able to get the legislations through. Now,
whether is not enough. That's not
whether Modi can deliver on those legislations with the majority that he has, because this is the first time in 30 years that there is a clear majority of a political party, that is the kind of expectation. And I spoke to Ajay Banga of Mastercard, and I spoke to the BlackRock CEO, Mr. Flink. All of them talked about one thing: predictability in the economic policy, number one, and number two, key legislations, if they are passed, and financial sector reforms, if they take place, they are willing to look at India very seriously. But till that happens, it's still just a promise. It needs some delivery.
Plus tax policy.
Plus tax policy.
No, but actually,
where you made a commitment.
That's where they say predictability in the policy.
Where you made a commitment. Well, I think, my hunch is that Modi gets the message here. He goes back and he realizes that he has to deliver in the next 6 to 7 months.
But
and I think knowing Modi, he'll want to speed it up. So the political impact of this will be that all those who bring in impediments, including some of those in the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, they might have to be dealt with very differently after he goes back. The honeymoon period, he realizes, is over. And now you get into the second part of the honeymoon period. And as Swami says, maybe you have 1 year at the most. Now you really need to move beyond the sizzle.
But there are a couple of things going in his favor. First of all, he himself is charismatic. Secondly, he's got the attention of the world. Thirdly, he has made it absolutely clear that there's a large... less than 35%, 65% of Indians are less than 35 years old, right? He's made all of that very clear.
All of those points.
So I think...
But those are not points that are lost on the world.
True. They're not lost on the world, that is true, but you need to emphasize them. But I think the most important thing in my mind is that he realizes this is an entire spectrum. You have those who are struggling to make two ends meet, and then you have this whole get a bullet train. So there's a whole spectrum out there. So he needs to make in India. He has to do that because he has to bring that bar up, right?
I think we've brought a certain amount of realism into the conversation that we've had out here, because too much bullishness, ladies and gentlemen, is bad. And bullishness is not going to take the relationship with America beyond a point. So Modi has to start talking specifics fairly soon. And I think this visit will also have impact on the way he deals with governance when he goes back.
Has to be.
I thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. And I'd like to tell all of you, please stay tuned to our coverage as we lead up to the big meeting between Barack Obama and Narendra Modi at the White House.